Houston, we have a mayor, finally. Imagine what the anti-abolitionists would have said had they lived to see this day. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Sotonye Afiesimama. If you're a subscriber, thank you. Thank you for visiting my channel again. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't liked any of my videos, do like, share as well. I would greatly appreciate that. If you're a returning visitor, like, share. Also consider subscribing as well. That would help me a lot. If you're here for the first time, welcome to the Today in History channel. Here I intend to share with you important historical events that have happened today with a view to us learning from the past, and hopefully from the mistakes especially, we can hopefully mold our future, our collective destiny as a human race. You know, there are mistakes that we have made in the past that when we see those mistakes beginning to unfold again before our very eyes, we can do something to prevent those mistakes from happening again. So I think history is a very good way to sort of project as to what's going to happen in the future, because, you know, as the saying goes, history tends to repeat itself. That has been consistent throughout history. So when we see negative events beginning to unfold, we know what to do to prevent history from repeating itself. Okay, let's get cracking with today's Today in History. 1421, on this day, Henry VI, pictured here, King of England, was born in Windsor, Berkshire. So this is Henry VI, pictured here, born on this day in 1421. In 1870, 449 years later, this man pictured here became the first black man elected into the House of the U.S. Representatives, so the U.S. House of Representatives. He was sworn in on this day in 1870. His name was Joseph H. Rainey. He was a congressman from South Carolina, and like I said earlier, he became the first African American sworn into the House of Representatives. 1870, December 6th. In 1897, 27 years later, Joseph B Blayton was born. Jesse Blayton, so his name is Jesse and not Joseph, was born on this day in 1897. Now, who was he? Okay, the picture I'm sure gives you a bit of information as to what his profession was, well, what he did on this day. So I'm going to read a bit about him. He was the first African American to own and operate a radio station, and that happened in 1949. He was born December 6, 1897, and died January 7, 1977, at the age of 79. So he would have been 80 in December of that year. Now, there's a bit more about this guy. There's quite a lot that he did, and I shall show you in a few more slides. He was also Georgia's first African-American certified public accountant 6 years later. So Georgia's first African-American certified public accountant. Okay, some more pictures of this guy coming up. That's him in a classroom. He was also a university professor. More pictures here. World Wide Web radiohof.org. And this is the radio station WERD in Atlanta. He purchased WERD in Atlanta in 1940. Okay. And then finally, A bit more about Jesse Blayton Jr., first African-American certified public accountant in Georgia, 1928, became the accountant for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s church, president of a bank, professor at the University of Atlanta, first African-American to own a radio station in the country. Like I said earlier, that happened in 1949. He used his radio station to report on the civil rights movement when much of the country was silent for fear of causing trouble. Dr. King used Blayton's radio station to speak his sermons and later speak about his marches. He was inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame in 1995. So that's about Jesse Blayton Jr., the first African-American to purchase to own a radio station, operate and own a radio station. Born on this day in 1897. In 1917, 20 years later, Finland declared its independence from Russia following the Bolshevik Revolution. So December 6th, as it says here in this stamped letter, proclaimed its independence from Russia. So over here it says the political system of Finland. Finland is a parliamentary democracy with a multi-party political system and the president as the new head of state. Finland declared itself independent of the Russian Empire on the 6th of December 1917. Since independence, Finland has lived with her Western democracy intact through the Second World War and the Cold War, and has become a member of the European Union. Let's see some more pictures of Finland. Independence Day 1917 being commemorated, and this is a Finnish flag being held aloft. Soldiers in the biting cold, Finland, and that's where Finland is located for those who do not know. So that's Sweden, that's Russia next to Finland, Norway to the north of Finland. So Finland in grey in the middle, Scandinavia. These countries are called Scandinavian countries for those who do not know again. Okie dokie, let's now move on to the year 1921. So just 4 years later, in Ireland, not too far away from Finland, in Europe as well, Northern Europe, the Irish Free State was established on this day in 1921, so more commonly known as Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. The British government and Irish leaders Arthur Griffith, Michael Collins and others signed the Anglo-Irish Treaty, establishing the Irish Free State as an independent member of the British Commonwealth on this day in 1921. 11 years later, in 1932, we're back in the United States. The automatic gear shift patent was issued to an African-American inventor called Richard Spikes, pictured here. So he received the patent for his invention of the automatic gear shift on this day in 1932. 1937, on this day, first African-American mayor of Houston. Yep, Houston, we have a mayor. So that's the answer to the rather cryptic clue at the beginning. Houston, we have a mayor. So I was like, imagine what the anti-abolitionists would have thought if they had lived to see this day. A black mayor of a major city in a southern state, of all places, not just the United States, but the southern states where most of the anti-abolitionists lived and thrived as well. The last but not least, his name, by the way, is Lee Brown. Lee Brown becomes Houston's first African-American mayor. The year was 1997. So last but not least, the Mars Global Surveyor, NASA, released images taken by the Mars Global Surveyor. So NASA released images taken by the Mars Global Surveyor on this day. And those images indicated the relatively recent presence of water on Mars. So again, the year was 2006, and pictured here is a Mars Global Surveyor, which took pictures that NASA released on this day. Those pictures indicated the recent presence of water on Mars. On that note, we have come to the end of today's Today in History. But before we do that, I'm going to show you where this saying, the common saying, Houston, we have a problem, just in case you guys didn't make the connection with Houston, we have a mayor, finally. So, the phrase, Houston, we have a problem, meaning and origin. What's the meaning of the phrase, Houston, we have a problem? Originally, a genuine report of a life-threatening fault, now used humorously to report any kind of problem. All right, let's see if we can find a little bit more information about this. Houston, we have a problem, Wikipedia. It says, it's a common but erroneous quotation from the radio communications between the Apollo 13 astronaut John Jack Swigert and the NASA Mission Control Center, Houston, during the Apollo 13 space flight, as the astronauts communicated their discovery of the explosion that crippled their spacecraft. It's funny how that ties into the Mars Global Surveyor and obviously the first African mayor of Houston and the anti-abolitionists. Interesting. So it says here, I'm going to continue reading. The words actually spoken initially by Jack Swigert were, "Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here." After being prompted to repeat the transmission by Capcom, Jack R. Luzma, Jim Lovell responded, Houston, we've had a problem. Okay. Since then, the erroneous phrase, Houston, we have a problem, has become popular, being used to account informally the emergence of an unforeseen problem, often with a sense of ironic understatement. On that note, we have come to the end of today's Today in History. I hope you did enjoy today's Today in History. You learned something. I did. I certainly have learned something new today as well. Thanks for dropping by. I shall see you tomorrow, December 7th, for another edition of Today in History. If you've enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks, guys. Stay safe. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.